Today, today we are going to create a form and validate it using JavaScript, and we are going to run it in Visual Studio Code. Now, what should this form contain? We'll see that first. So today we are going to create a form to get all the user input like first name, last name, email, checkbox, radio, comment, drop down, and using only HTML, CSS, and JS. Okay, there will be a submit button. On clicking that, the form should validate its first name, last name, email, and enter. Then we should create a span tag if above fields are not entered and insert it next to the appropriate input element. After the field is given a value, if the submit button is clicked, then the span tag for the specific field should be removed. Then on clicking on the cancel button, want to clear all the input fields from the form and also the span tags from the form. If all the fields have values, then create a table in JS dynamically in a table format. So we are going to create this today. Now, first of all, in Visual Studio, we create a file called form valid video.html. Okay, I've created that. Then, first of all, we're going to complete the HTML part. Then we'll go inside the script part. Inside the head, first of all, I'm fixing the title for the page. JS form validation. Okay. Now, after that, inside the head itself, we're going to mm, add style attribute for we need to create span tag, right? So for the span tag, we will set the color obviously red for span, right? Okay. Then font size, some 12 pixel. Okay. Then margin left, some 10 pixels, because this margin left fills the span tag and the input box. Okay. Then we have to style the table now. There will be a table we'll create now. So for the table header cells and the table data cells, we are going to get style for these three. There also will be adding this border. We'll have 1 pixel solid black, and there we don't want to collapse the border, so we'll use the border collapse. Because if we don't use this collapse, there will be a double lined border for the table, that will be not nice, so we are using that. Then we'll be using padding, some 6 pixels. Okay, that will create the enough space between the borders and the elements inside the table. Okay, now we have created the head tag and the style. Okay, then inside the body we are going to create the form elements first. Now inside this we will first create the form id, because using this id only we can call after that from the script script part. Okay, these IDs are used, we are going to use to call them back. Okay, now we'll speed up this part and we'll first complete the HTML side. First of all, what we saw there, we are going to create the first name. We need an input box now, so we are going to create input and we'll select the type text and we'll fix ID here so that we can call it back later. For example, I'll set as f name for short. Okay, then we need to break line after that so that we can get enough space. So you're using here double break line. Next one, the last name. Same procedure. So I'll cut the copy and paste here and just change this f name to l name. Okay, then next one will be adding the email now. Email, I'm going to select this thing again and paste it, but here input type there is a inbuilt input type there. We can type the email, so here id I want to change the id also so that we can call it email. After that we saw interest now. So for the interest, first we have to create input type checkbox. This checkbox, if we check that, it will add that value. So we are going to have attribute called value that will give coding example and say that coding. Yeah. Then another input. Next checkbox we are going to create another checkbox. For that value, we will give a music. Okay, music. Then we have to use break line double time so that we'll get enough space between the other elements and this. Then we had comments now. So we'll go to comments. For comments, we are going to use text area tag so that we'll get a box. Inside that we'll have a text area and we are going to add id so that you can call it back later. We'll name it as comment. After that, usually we have to break line both times so that we have enough space. Next we have to add country, right? Here we are going to use select ID because we need a drop down button. Select. The select creates a drop down where we can have multiple country options so that we can select from that. Now we are going to fix the ID here so that we can use to call it back later. I've selected this country itself. Open tag is selected, and inside that we have to add the option, and we are going to give the value select. First of all, there will be displaying select no. Further, we have created the first option. The next option will be, for example, India. India. Then I'll type the name inside, and then I'll go with the next option. In the next option, we can select USA. Okay, now I'll give the name. Okay, the select tag is over. The drop down will be ready. Then we create both the break line tags so that we can get enough space. Then inside we saw both two types of button, right? So one button is submit form and another button is cancel form, right? Okay. We'll first create the submit button. We have to select the type and then on click. This is an event listener function where if we click on this button, there will be function called submit form. We will create the function here itself, then we will create the function part in the script tag. So if we click this button, this submit form function must be calling. That's the logic here. Okay. Then I'll create the another button, cancel rate. Here we'll have clear form so that we'll that's cancel button, right? Okay. So inside the form we have created the form elements. Then we'll have a break line. After that we have to create a table, right? So we'll create a table. We'll have id called data table. Okay, data table. Inside the date table, we'll create a t head. Inside we'll have a heading tags called mm, the created elements. No, so we'll have a first name. Then we have a last name, then we have email, right? Email, then next one is interest, right? Okay, interest, then another heading, we have left here the gender button. So first of all, here we'll add, then I'll be adding in the HTML part. Okay, gender, we left the gender in the form. Okay. Next, comments, country. Okay, now we have added everything in the table: first name, last name, email, address, gender, comments, country. We have to add the gender part alone in the HTML side. So before that, we'll complete the table side. Okay, for the table row, we'll be adding the table row. Inside this table row only, we'll have this head elements. Okay, so I will have here till this. Then after the head, we have to create the table body now. Table body. This table body tag will have everything that contains inside that. Okay, though, so now we missed the gender part now that we'll type here. After the interest, we'll have gender, right? We'll create a, as usual, we'll create an input tag. In this, we'll set the type. This type, we have to use the radio type because we only have to select one gender now. So we'll use radio type and we'll give a name attribute, gender, and value attribute. First, we'll select male, male. Okay, then we'll create another input type for the female. Input type, radio, as usual, name attribute, gender, and the value attribute, female. Now here we'll add the female. Okay, as usual, after the female tag, we'll have two break line tag. Okay, so that we'll have enough space inside that. Now we have created the form part where we have created the body, form ID, username, first name. We have created the input for first name, created input for last name, and email input, interest, gender, comments, country, and for country we have created a drop down. For comments, we have created a text area. For gender, we have created a radio button. For interest, we have created checkbox. And two buttons we have created for submitting and cancelling. Then we have created the data table which inside which will have the every elements which is collected from this form. Okay, that will be dynamically formed inside that. So next we are going to get inside the script part. So we'll be coding the script now. Inside the script tag, first of all we will see the output for this form. Now we'll press Alt L and Alt O. See, this is the output for this form. So we have everything here, but this form is not yet validated, and there will be no span tags created. So we are going to create the span tags and complete this form, and we'll after this submit these elements here. Elements will be gathered here in the table form. So this is our next task. So we'll go back to the code and we'll be creating the script first. So now first of all we'll create a function create span. So if nothing is entered, they will create a create span. Okay. Now inside this create span, we are giving the parameters called ID and message, will which is ID. We can call the ID, and the message will can manipulate the message in the DOM, and we can have the message inside that. So function create span ID dot message ID comma message. Then inside that we'll create a variable. Let um, we'll have existing document dot determined by ID. Not existing. We'll create a block scope let span and we'll store the document and we'll create a span and we'll create a span ID plus error so that we can call it back later. So I'm splitting the span text content right next one so that we can get the text. Span text content is equal to, we already used this parameter right message. We're going to set it as this span text content. Then we'll get the where we have to get this span. So there we're going to set this thing now next. Document element by ID after span. Okay, now I first created a create span here. I will explain what I've done here. So we are here writing a function to show error message to below a specific input or other the side of the specific input. For example, ID is equal to F name or email. Message that will be applied, let be first name required or email required, it will be applied. So first of all, we checks if a span already exists. For example, ID name F name. It checks for F name error or else, and if no span exists, it creates and store a new span element in memory. Span ID. Okay, next line. If for span ID is equal to ID plus error, no, that one gives it a unique ID which fname error, so we can identify or remove later. Then we are setting the span's text content to message document dot get element by ID after span. This one places the span after the input box as a warning sign. We are creating a warning sign that there is no input we are given in this input box. So we have done this here. Then we'll go next to remove span function. For creating span, we have created a function first, then we'll now create a remove span function. In this, as usual, we create a let's scope and we store the doc element by accessing using document dot get element by id. Same id plus error, and if span dot remove. Okay, now in this I've created a function called remove span id. So let span is equal to document dot get element by id plus that looks this basically looks for an error span. If it exists, it removes it. It erases the warning sign that I already said after the input is invalid valid no. So it will remove the function span tag. That's is that's so that we are using this function here. Then we go to the already we have created a function submit form and clear form no. So for that function we have to create what it's want to do. For first of all, we'll go with function submit form. First we'll go with function submit form, and we need to code inside that. So on clicking the submit form, what all we have to achieve, so that first we'll create a const variable which cannot be changed after, called f name, first name. So document dot get element by id. Inside that we'll set the id of name. For same only for everything. So for l name document dot l name Then after that, for email, document dot email. We have to create it inside double quotes or else it won't work. Then what we have next? Then we have a comments, right? Comment constant const comment document dot get element by id. Inside that comment. Then another const. Next const will have a country, no country document dot get element by id same country. Next, what we left after the constant const gender. Now we have left the again the gender document dot get element by id. So first here listen carefully. For the gender alone, we have to use single quotes here, and first we have to check the input type. So that for gender we are using the radio button. No, so inside the input we open the square bracket. Inside that name, we already create the name attribute. No, using that we are calling here name is equal to, here we will give this double quotes and then we closed it, and here we use the semicolon colon, and we we check already it's checked or not. So for gender, inside the input we call the name attribute gender, and that we check whether it's already checked or not. If for example if there's male and female, if already the male or female is checked or not, we will going to check here. Okay, then after that the for this interest also we follow the same thing. We, okay, then we create the interest and store it inside that document dot get element by id. We follow the same thing here, input square bracket type. We set the type, no, remember as checkbox. I'll show it here. Interest, we have select the type. No, using this type we are going to call here checkbox. Checkbox, and as usual we are going to check whether it's checked or not. First of all, here we have to use array dot from function which creates the, so this array dot from creates a array from this checked items. So in interest alone we can have multiple interests, right? So it will gather all the interests and create it into an array. So we are using the array dot from function here. Then we have inside that we get the document about get element by id and everything. Then after the check, we use a similar function which called dot map, and inside this I'll show this element join. Okay, now I'll inside the this I'll explain this interest. Array.form turns this node list into a real array. Okay, first it will check the interest, which interest we have checked in the checkbox. We have checked many interests now that will gather and turns this node list into a real array. Then this dot map l and this arrow l dot value. What this one extracts the values like that coding music. That's simple. Okay, el is nothing but the element, short form for element, and it goes using the arrow function and gathers the l dot value, which value we have checked, that it will gather. And next on the joins, no join dot, in this join it will gather the checked items as a string inside a string. That's it. It these three things happen here. Okay, then this is the important part here. Next we are going to, after this submit form, we now create a let scope called is valid and set it as true. Well, now what are you doing here? I'll explain. Here we are going to declare a block scope variable and we are creating a flag named is valid to track whether this form is valid or not. Here we are assuming at the start that this form is valid. So we are first of all we are setting the form as true and it is valid. And we will find if we find any issues, we set it to false. Here we are using after that we will be using valid is valid is equal to false in between, because it then adds an incomplete row to the table, so and shows a bad data. So if we use it, then if we use a valid false, that tells the program the field is invalid. Okay, okay, now I'll show you how to do that. First we'll have a function. First we'll go with f name dot value create span. F name, now we'll set the span message. First name required. Okay, then we'll set inside itself a, in between itself we'll set a is valid function. Turn that flag, we created flag into false if in between something happens. Okay, then or else we create, we call the remove function, remove span. F name. Okay, so we're going to do the same for the last name and the email. Okay, we change the L name, cell name, and last name required, L name, and here I'll change it as email. And I'll add email required, else remove span, email. Okay, now then I will set the flag as return. Okay, now we'll exclaim here what happened here. Now as I already said, we are declaring a block scoped variable and we are creating a flag named is valid, and to track which whether the form is valid or not. Here we are assuming at the start that the form is valid. Then if we find any issues inside that, we'll set it to false and return the function so that the function will be not called. And then so if we do not do this, the bad sometimes an incomplete row will be formed inside the table and the show data will be shown very bad. So inside is if we add is valid is equal to false, that tells the program that the field is invalid. So that later we use we set the valid tag and cancel return, it cancels the form submission into a invalidity. So if an invalidity exists, so we are following this flag method to set the forms state as true and false. Okay, that's it we are doing here. So we have if the if name dot value doesn't exist, we'll be creating a span here. First name required is valid. We are setting the is valid is false, or else we'll be removing this. Or else there is already a span there. We'll be calling the remove span function. Here we have already did the function here. No, remove span, and this ID the f name will be passed, and the f name will be running here, and the span will be removed. For the same process for L name and the email. Okay, if the span has an invalidity, if not valid, this function is whole will be returned and cancel the form submission. After that, what we left. So we'll now be creating the row. Now we'll go to the table part. Document dot create element er. Row dot inner HTML. Inside that, I will use some backticks. I will explain later, and I will type inside the table data. If name dot value, close the table data. Now I'll explain what we are going to do here. So now we are going to create a constant variable named row that cannot be reassigned, and then create a new tr, a table row, preparing a new row inside insert to the table and inserting to the table. And we are using a row dot inner HTML that sets the HTML elements inside the row. Okay. Then we first of all we started with the template literal backticks, so that we'll insert this insert the actual value to input type into the input field using that dollar sign. The dollar sign, which is nothing but it is used to extract the value as a string inside that. So okay, now we'll do the everything for do the same for everything. Then same we have the table data. Now we'll change the L name alone. Then what we have next one, we have email. Now there we'll change the email alone. The next one we have interest rate. In that we'll change the interest. So here we don't have to add dot value because this interest already here gains the values by using array dot form, array dot form, right? Okay. Then next we'll use the we call for what next we have. Hmm, we have gender, right? Gender. For gender, I'll show one thing here and explain later. Gender dot value. Okay, for gender alone, here I did something. I will explain that. Here in this gender question mark gender dot value semicolon, and I used a empty string. No, in this we are using a like a if else condition here. So here if the gender exists, that is a radio button is selected, it returns gender dot value or returns a empty string. Okay, you can select only a male or a female. No, so this gender dot value shows the male, or it will reflect as a null data, okay, in the table. So this question mark which gets the gender dot value. Okay, now after that, for what we left here, after gender we have comments row. Okay, comments comment dot value. Next, after that comment we have finally we have something right which I don't remember now. Um, country dot value. Country. We have country. Okay. After that we have ended. I think we don't have nothing left. So the table data part is over, and we will, as usual, as already I said, we use this backtick and we will close. So we started here with the backtick and we created everything here, and we closed with this backtick. This backtick and this dollar symbol uses this template retrieval type which inserts the actual value and typed into the input field. They gather that. Okay. Then for this table we have to create a inner child, right? Document dot query select query selector. We'll use here hash symbol so that we can call the previously created data table. Okay. Data table t body dot append child row. So now what you're doing here, I'll explain. Okay, document.query selector grabs the t body of table by its ID data table. Okay, then append child row adds row as we created the bottom of the table. So, so after we fill everything, the row gets added automatically, and the next row gets added automatically. So that we have used dot append child here. So next we'll go for the clear form. Now I forgot inside the clear forms. Okay, we have completed the function submit form. Now, now we are going to work on the clear form function. So that we call clear form function back later, then it will call the function inside this and play this function. Now document dot get element by ID. Now we're going to call the form itself, forms ID itself, which we have already set it as user form, right? User form. Then we give reset. Then we add the document dot query selector all method for every span present inside, so that we can gather all the spans and we select here for for each for each span dot remove. So now what you've done here, I'll explain. So now we go into clear form function side here. So the clear form grabs the form element, and this reset thing built in. It's a built-in method that clears all the fields inside, such as text fields, checkbox, text area, drop down, and the document.query selector all span. For each span we have It selects all the span elements and loops through each span and remove it from the page. Okay. This ensures all the error messages are cleared and visually when the form is reset. That thing we are doing here. Now I think we completed here. I'll check the whole script script side. So we have any mistake here. No, this red here showing red. I didn't complete this bracket. Okay. So okay, we'll give alt alt L and alt O so that it's a shortcut will be running here. Now, first of all, I will enter only the last name and I will check email ID. I will select an email ID, coding, music, mail, and give here any comments and go with India and submit. This form is not submitting here. We have some mistake back here. Okay. Now I'll check what is the mistake here and I'll come back here. Now here we have used this no user form. In this user form, we have given the capital F, but in every place, see, I have created with here with a small f. So I will change that and I will run again. Now we don't enter the first name. Again, I will give either email ID and mail. Select gender, some comments, India, submit. Again, it won't run. Now I don't know what mistake I did here, but I followed everything I can do on ChatGPT. I get input. So what mistake I've done here, I don't know. Okay, let's check from the script tag itself. First, inside the script, we created a function create span. Here, here we didn't this here we didn't call this span.id itself. We didn't set the id itself, and we are going to move that. Okay, that's the mistake we did here. This dot, we left this dot. Now I'll refresh and okay, I'll do the same thing. Music, mail, select any country. Okay, now the form is also not running. So I'll copy this code and I'll ask ChatGPT what is the error here I've done. Okay, don't have to waste time here. We'll ask the ChatGPT what error we have done here. It corrects issues in your code. CSS syntax issue. Okay, we'll wait for the issue. What happened here? SP. Done a bunch of mistakes here. I'm going to correct it first from first. Fix CSS properties must use a hyphen, not space. Oh, okay. First of all, I'll create all that. Then create span is an assigning word ID. Incorrect, missing dash. Span.id. Here I left this error. Okay. Then third mistake, sing get element ID with a yes. For gender, I have to use query selector. No, that's a mistake I made here. Then I'll go to the gender. Query selector. Then okay, then for the checkbox, I have to use query selector all so that it goes for the all query selector present and gets the value out. Okay, then JavaScript is case sensitive, so this variable name I have used caps I. So here I have to correct it to small I. Okay, then okay, in the table data I have made a mistake called country. Left the U there. Okay, now we'll check. Okay, I think I've corrected every mistake there. Now I'll do everything as usual and check the output. India. Still I didn't get the output. What mistake now I've done? I'll ask again ChatGPT what mistakes I've done and correct it in this time. I think I corrected every mistakes, but I don't know what I'm missing here. You posted the correction. If you like, I can now give you a line by line expression. No, the code is not running. Look for any minor mistakes also. You right to ask for a careful check. Let's debug. Okay, in between we'll check ourselves what mistakes we have done here. Okay, I'll go line by line and check. First in the HTML tag, we create a title, style, span, margin, table, data table. Okay, then inside the body tag, next into the body tag, we'll check form ID, user form, first name, input type text ID, F name, input type text ID, last name. Okay. Form, data table. Inside the data table also I completed everything correctly, but what I'm missing I don't know. Okay, now I'll go to ChatGPT. Then inside the script code, whatever mistakes I've done. Create span ID message let existing document. Span is equal to span ID after span. I used an adjacent element here so that correctly spans that. Then what? What I've done here, I don't know. Okay, now we'll check again. Kumar, anything, any comments? India, submit. The code is not running again. Okay, I'll now see the mistakes what I've done again. Submit form, clear form. Okay. Oh, submit form function. I have this made mistake in the submit form. Now, what's the name I've cleared? Oh, now I found it. I have used the small f for the submit form so that the form is not calling itself. So that it remains the same HTML form itself. Okay, now I'll check. Kumar, give an email ID. Any command. India. Now the form is working. Then that's like the result we needed is here. The first name required span is here present. So I'll refresh and I'll give the correct inputs. First name, last name, any email ID, interest coding, music. I'll select both so that it will give both inputs. Comment anything I'll select. India, submit. Okay, we got the table here. So we've successfully created a table and validated it in JavaScript and I've shown how to run it in VS Code. So I'll show the code again. This is the code we created. So it's a successful code. Now I completed it. Thank you.